You? In SEAL training. The words cut across the grinder like a blade. For half a second, the whole line went quiet. Rain mist rolled in from the Pacific, thin and cold, turning the sand dark beneath their boots. The morning sky over the naval training compound was still gray, the kind of gray that made every building look harder, every face look sharper. 52 candidates stood soaked in sweat and seawater, chests rising, shoulders burning, uniforms clinging to them like wet canvas. In the middle of the formation stood Ava Martinez. 5'5". Dark hair pinned back tight. Face calm. Hands still. She didn't look left. She didn't look right. She just kept her eyes forward as the laughter started behind her. It began with one man. Then two. Then half the row. You heard her, a candidate named Cole Barrett said, loud enough for everyone to hear. She said sniper school. More laughter. Ava kept breathing through her nose. Across the yard, the steel pull-up bars dripped with rain. Mud streaked the obstacle course. A rubber boat lay overturned near the surf line, still carrying the handprints of the team that had dragged it through the tide 10 minutes earlier. The air smelled like salt, wet rope, and exhaustion. It was only day 6. Most of them already looked older than when they had arrived. But Ava looked exactly the same as she had on day 1. Quiet. Controlled. Unimpressed. Cole stepped half a pace closer, water dripping from his shaved head onto the collar of his training shirt. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and loud in the way men became loud when they needed other people to believe they were fearless. You, he repeated, staring at her like the idea itself offended him. In SEAL training was funny enough. But sniper school. A few candidates shifted their weight. Some smirked. Some looked away. Nobody said a word in her defense. Ava had learned that silence early. Not because silence meant weakness. Because silence showed you who people were when they thought there would be no consequence. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below, and if you believe in courage and respect, hit like and subscribe. These stories inspire change, and we're glad you're here. Now, back to Ava. Chief Petty Officer Daniel Rourke watched from 30 yards away, arms folded across his chest, rain beating on the brim of his cap. He had seen this before. Not Ava. The reaction to Ava. In 15 years of training candidates, Rourke had learned that fear rarely announced itself as fear. Sometimes it sounded like jokes. Sometimes it sounded like confidence. Sometimes it sounded like men laughing at someone smaller than them because the alternative was admitting she might be better. Ava Martinez had arrived at the compound without a story. No bragging. No tattoos displayed like warnings. No speeches about proving people wrong. Her file had been thin in the parts most candidates cared about and strangely quiet in the parts Rourke cared about most. Prior service. Excellent fitness scores. Unusual marksmanship notes. Several sections blacked out under restricted review. That had caught his attention. But not as much as her habits. She was the first one awake every morning. Not loud about it. Not dramatic. Just there. Before dawn, when the barracks still smelled of wet socks and bad coffee, Ava would sit at the edge of her bunk and tape her feet with the steady hands of someone who knew pain was not an emergency. Then she would step outside, stretch in the dark, and watch the flags move above the administration building. Not the flags themselves. The wind. Rourke had noticed that. On the first morning, she had paused beside the weapons classroom and studied the range markers posted on the training board. On the second, she had corrected another candidate's sling position without making him feel stupid. On the third, she had disassembled a training rifle during a timed drill and laid every part down with the kind of order that made instructors stop pretending not to look. Still, to most of the candidates, she was just the small woman near the back of the line. A convenient target. Cole Barrett turned to the others now, feeding off the attention. Maybe they've got a special sniper course for people who can't carry the rifle, he said. A few men laughed harder. Ava finally moved. Not much. Just enough to turn her head toward him. Her expression didn't change. Her jaw didn't tighten. Her eyes didn't flash with anger. That almost made it worse. She looked at Cole the way a range officer looked at a target before calling distance. Measured. Patient. Already finished with the calculation. Cole's grin weakened for a fraction of a second. Then he covered it with another laugh. What? He asked. You got something to say? Ava wiped rain from her cheek with the back of one hand. No, she said. Her voice was quiet, but it carried. Cole tilted his head. No, Ava repeated. Not here. The laughter faded a little. There was something in the way she said it. No threat. No performance. Just a line drawn so cleanly that several candidates suddenly became interested in the mud beneath their boots. Cole scoffed. Then where? Ava looked past him toward the long-range training tower at the far end of the compound. Beyond it, behind a chain-link fence and a warning sign, the precision range stretched into the coastal hills. Most candidates had not touched that range yet. They had only heard about it. Wind shifts. Narrow lanes. Unknown distance targets. Instructors who did not smile. Ava's eyes stayed there for one breath. Then she looked back at Cole. We'll let the range decide. No one laughed this time. Chief Rourke lowered his arms. The rain kept falling. A whistle screamed across the yard, sharp enough to snap every head forward. On the line, Rourke barked. You came here to talk, or you came here to train? Boots slammed into position. Cole stepped back into formation, but his eyes stayed on Ava a moment longer. The smirk returned, thinner now, less certain. Ava faced front again. The whistle blew. They dropped into the sand for push-ups, bodies moving in rough rhythm beneath the cold morning rain. Around her, candidates grunted, cursed under their breath, fought the ground as if it had insulted them. Ava moved differently. Not faster. Not stronger. Just cleaner. Every repetition exact. Every breath controlled. Every motion saved from waste. Chief Rourke watched her through the rain and remembered the blacked out lines in her file. Then he looked toward the precision range. By sunset, everyone on that yard would understand something Cole Barrett had not yet learned. Some people begged for respect. Some demanded it. And some waited quietly until the world gave them a target. Ava Martinez had learned how to disappear before she ever learned how to shoot. Not vanish. Not hide. Disappear. There was a difference. Hiding meant fear. Disappearing meant control. It meant standing in a room full of people and giving them nothing to grab. No anger. No weakness. No story they could twist into something small. At 28, Ava had built her entire military career around that discipline. She spoke when orders required it. She moved when the mission demanded it. She never filled silence just because other people were uncomfortable with it. That bothered some of them. In training environments built on shouting, posturing, and proving who could take up the most space, Ava's quiet felt like an insult. By breakfast, the story had already spread through the compound. The small woman in 3rd Platoon thought she was going to sniper school. Candidates repeated it over powdered eggs and black coffee. Some laughed into their trays. Some pretended not to care while leaning closer to hear more. The mess hall was warm, loud, and packed with exhausted bodies wearing the same damp training gear. Steam rose from metal food trays. Boots scraped beneath tables. Someone dropped a fork, and half the room flinched out of habit. Ava sat alone near the end of a long table. Not in the corner. Not away from everyone. Just far enough that she could eat without inviting conversation. She had rice, eggs, and 2 pieces of toast. She ate slowly, not because she lacked hunger, but because rushing wasted energy. Her hands were scraped from the obstacle course. A bruise had started blooming along her left forearm where the boat had slammed into her during surf drills. Her shoulders ached. Her ribs hurt when she breathed too deep. None of it showed on her face. Across the room, Cole Barrett sat with 3 other candidates, retelling the moment like it had been comedy written for him. She looked me dead in the eye, Cole said, grinning. And said, we'll let the range decide. The table erupted. Range decide what? Another candidate asked. Whether she can even see over the rifle? More laughter. Ava reached for her coffee. Her hand did not shake. A candidate named Miles Avery, sitting 2 seats down from Cole, glanced toward her and lowered his voice. Maybe leave it alone. Cole looked at him like he had said something embarrassing. Leave what alone? Miles shrugged. He was not brave enough to defend her directly, but not cruel enough to enjoy the whole thing either. She's still here. Same as us. Cole leaned back. For now. That phrase traveled farther than he intended. For now. Ava heard it. She heard everything. She heard the laughter, the doubt, the chairs shifting when she walked past, the pause in conversation when she entered a room. She heard the word quota whispered by people who thought whispering made ugliness less obvious. But she had heard worse. Years earlier, at her first unit, a sergeant had looked at her rucksack before a mountain movement and told her she should switch to a lighter load before she embarrassed herself. He had said it kindly, which somehow made it worse. At airborne school, a corporal had asked if she was lost on the way to admin processing. During a joint exercise overseas, a foreign officer had handed her a clipboard instead of a map and told her to take notes for the men. Every time, Ava had given the same answer. Performance. Nothing else lasted. Words faded. Rankings changed. Jokes died when the scoreboard went up. She finished her breakfast and stood. Conversation dipped around her like wind changing direction. Cole watched her pick up her tray. You really think you're built for this? He called out. The mess hall did not go silent all at once. It thinned. Voices dropped by layers until only the clatter from the kitchen remained. Ava turned. Cole stood too, pleased to have an audience again. You're tough, I'll give you that, he said. But this place doesn't care about tough. Everybody here is tough. SEAL training breaks tough people every day. Ava held the tray at her side. Then save your breath. A few candidates looked up. Cole's smile tightened. What? You'll need it. The words were not loud. They were not sharp. But they landed. For a moment, Cole had no answer. That bothered him more than any insult would have. He stepped from behind the bench, broad frame blocking the aisle. You know what your problem is, Martinez? You act like you're above everyone. Ava looked at the space he had left open to his right. An exit. Not because she was afraid. Because she noticed exits the way some people noticed weather. I'm not above anyone, she said. Then why don't you talk? Because not every thought deserves a voice. A few faces changed. A couple of candidates looked down to hide smiles. Miles Avery stared at his tray. Cole heard the reaction and flushed. That's supposed to mean something? Ava shifted the tray to her other hand. It means you talk a lot for someone who hasn't finished the course. The room tightened. Cole took one step closer. Not enough to touch her. Enough to test her. Ava did not move back. That was the first thing Chief Rourke noticed when he entered the mess hall. He had come in through the side door, carrying a clipboard and wearing the kind of expression that made candidates suddenly remember regulations. But he stopped before speaking. He saw Cole in the aisle. He saw Ava with the tray. He saw the circle of attention forming around them. And he saw Ava's posture. Balanced. Relaxed. Feet under her. Shoulders loose. Not defensive. Ready. Rourke had trained enough operators to recognize the difference. Cole had not. You think one comm line makes you special? Cole said under his breath. Ava's gaze stayed level. No, then what does? She let the question hang for 1 second. Then she turned toward the tray return. Results. She walked past him. Cole did not stop her. No one spoke as she slid the tray into the rack, wiped her hands with a brown paper napkin, and headed for the exit. The door opened, letting in cold air and the distant sound of surf breaking beyond the dunes. Chief Rourke watched her go. Then he looked at Cole. Barrett. Cole snapped straight. Chief. Rourke's voice stayed flat. Since you've got extra energy for speeches, you can carry the spare ammo. Cans during range prep. Cole's jaw moved once. Yes, Chief. And Barrett? Yes, Chief. Rourke glanced toward the door Ava had just walked through. Make sure you bring enough. Cole frowned. Enough for what, Chief? Rourke did not smile. For history. By noon, the rain had stopped. The cold did not. It stayed in the candidates' sleeves, under their collars, inside their boots. It lived in the sand they carried on their uniforms and in the ache behind their knees. The training compound looked almost peaceful from a distance, with gray clouds dragging low over the water and gulls circling above the dunes. Up close, it was built to remove illusions. There were no soft edges. No wasted words. No place to hide from the truth of what a body could carry and what a mind could survive. Third platoon stood beside the equipment shed while instructors prepared the next evolution. Rubber rifles leaned against the wall. Ammo cans sat in rows on the gravel. Wooden crates were marked with faded stencil numbers. Beyond the fence, the precision range waited in the hills, quiet and closed, its steel targets hidden somewhere in the distance. Ava Martinez stood at the end of the line with her hands clasped behind her back. Her face was calm, but her body kept a private inventory. Left shoulder tight. Right knee swollen. 2 blisters opened under the tape. Breathing steady. Still functional. That was how she measured pain. Not by how much it hurt. By whether it changed the mission. Cole Barrett stood 3 places away, rolling his neck, still angry from the mess hall. The laughter had followed him all morning, but it no longer felt clean. Ava had not embarrassed him loudly. She had done something worse. She had made him look undisciplined. That kind of thing stayed with a man like Cole, especially in front of other candidates. Especially when the person who did it was 5'5" and had not raised her voice. He watched her now as she checked the straps on her rucksack. Methodical. Precise. No wasted motion. She tied the loose end of one strap, tucked it flat, then adjusted the weight like she had packed loads in worse places than this. Cole hated that. He wanted her to struggle in a way that proved him right. He wanted one obvious weakness. One crack. One moment where everyone saw what he believed he had seen from the beginning. That she did not belong. Chief Rourke stepped onto a wooden platform near the shed and looked over the platoon. His clipboard was tucked beneath one arm. His whistle hung against his chest. He waited until the last murmur died without needing to ask for silence. Afternoon evolution, he said. Endurance movement. Load carry. Team extraction drill. Then range familiarization for those still standing. A pulse moved through the candidates. Range familiarization. Ava heard the words and felt the world narrow slightly. Not excitement. Not nerves. Recognition. The kind a person feels when a door opens onto a place they have been waiting to enter. Rourke continued. You will move in 4-person teams. 2 ammo cans per team. 1 simulated casualty. Rotation every 400 meters. Terrain includes sand, rock, incline, and waterline. Standards are simple. You move together or you fail together. A candidate near the front swallowed hard. Cole glanced toward Ava and smirked. Hope Sniper School teaches carrying people, he muttered. A few men around him chuckled. Ava looked at him once. Only once. Then she looked forward again. The teams were assigned quickly. Ava ended up with Miles Avery, a quiet candidate named Ruiz, and Cole. Of course. Rourke read the names without expression, but his eyes moved just long enough to catch Ava's reaction. There was none. Cole stepped closer as they collected their gear. Lucky us, he said. We get the future sniper. Miles reached for one of the ammo cans. Cole, man, what? Cole snapped. I'm motivating the team. Ava bent, checked the handle on her can, and lifted it with one hand. The weight pulled hard through her shoulder, but she absorbed it without changing her face. Cole noticed. So did Rourke. The whistle blew. They moved. At first, the pace was controlled. Boots struck wet sand in a staggered rhythm. The ocean rolled to their left, cold and indifferent. Instructors moved along the edges, calling corrections, watching posture, waiting for mistakes. The ammo cans were heavier than they looked. They always were. The simulated casualty was a training dummy dressed in old fatigues, dead weight strapped to a canvas litter. It bounced with every uneven step, forcing each team to coordinate or waste energy fighting each other. Cole tried to take command immediately. Faster, he barked. Pick it up. Martinez, don't drag the corner. Ava adjusted her grip and said nothing. At the first rotation point, Ruiz stumbled on a patch of loose rock. The litter dipped hard. Cole cursed. Miles caught the frame before the dummy slid off. Watch your feet, Cole shouted. Ruiz's face flushed. I'm good. You don't look good. Ava stepped around them, calm as a metronome. Switch positions. Ruiz goes front left. Miles, rear right. Cole, match my pace. Cole stared at her. Excuse me? You're overstriding, she said. It's throwing the litter. Miles glanced down, then realized she was right. Cole's jaw tightened. I didn't ask. No, Ava said, taking her corner again. But the dummy keeps answering. Ruiz almost smiled. Almost. Cole grabbed his side of the litter harder than necessary. Move. They moved. This time smoother. Not because Cole listened. Because his body did. The next 400 meters cut up through a sandy incline where each step slid half a step back. Candidates began to breathe louder. One team dropped an ammo can and had to restart the segment. Another lost control of the litter and earned a blast from an instructor that carried all the way to the surf. Ava's arms burned. Her lungs worked hard. But her mind stayed quiet. She counted terrain. 7 steps firm. 3 soft. Rock on the right. Wind from the water. Shift weight before the rise. Save the grip. Breathe before the turn. Cole kept waiting for her to fade. She did not. At the waterline, the cold hit their boots and climbed fast. The litter grew slick. Ruiz started limping. Miles' breathing turned ragged. Cole's face reddened with effort, pride forcing him to keep a pace his legs no longer wanted. Ava saw the problem before anyone said it. Slow by 10%, she said. Cole spat seawater from his mouth. We slow down, we lose time. We keep this pace. Ruiz falls. I said move. 3 more steps. Ruiz's knee buckled. Ava dropped her ammo can, caught the litter with both hands, and shifted under the weight before the dummy hit the sand. The movement was so fast that Miles only realized what happened after the frame steadied again. Cole turned, furious. Pick up the can. Ava looked at Ruiz. Can you continue? Ruiz nodded, embarrassed. Yeah. She studied him for half a second. Shorter steps. Don't fight the sand. Then she lifted the ammo can again. Cole stepped close enough that his voice dropped beneath the instructor's range. You think you're in charge? Ava's eyes met his. No, she said. I think you're making this harder than it has to be. The words struck harder because they were true. Cole's face changed. Not rage exactly. Something more dangerous. Humiliation. You've got a mouth for someone who hasn't proven anything, he said. Ava's grip tightened around the ammo can handle. For the first time that day, something cold passed behind her eyes. I've proven enough to still be here. Cole leaned closer. For now. The whistle blew again from the ridge. Chief Rourke's voice cut through the air. Teams to the range gate. Every candidate turned toward the fenced road leading into the hills. The precision range. Ava looked past Cole. Past the wet sand. Past the pain in her hands. The hills waited under a low ceiling of cloud. Steel targets hidden at distances no one had been told. Wind moving left to right. Unsteady. Complicated. Honest. Cole saw her looking and mistook the stillness for fear. He smiled. Range decides, right? Ava lifted the ammo can and started walking. This time, when she passed him, she answered without looking back. Exactly. The range gate opened with a sound like old metal clearing its throat. No one talked after that. The road climbed into the coastal hills in a narrow strip of gravel bordered by warning signs, scrub brush, and sand-colored barriers. The training compound disappeared behind them piece by piece until the ocean was only a gray line beneath the clouds. Ahead, the precision range stretched across uneven terrain, quiet in a way that felt deliberate. It did not look impressive at first. That was the trick. There were no bright targets standing close. No simple lanes. No neat rows where a shooter could settle in, breathe once, and feel good about himself. The hills folded over each other at strange angles. Tall grass moved in broken patterns. Steel plates were hidden among rock faces, shadow lines, and dark gaps between scrub. A place like this did not reward confidence. It rewarded attention. Chief Rourke stopped the platoon behind a concrete firing line and turned to face them. Range familiarization, he said. Not qualification. Not competition. You are here to learn how much you don't know. Several candidates tried not to look disappointed. Cole Barrett did not bother hiding it. He rolled his shoulders and glanced toward Ava with a grin that said the show was about to begin. He had recovered some of his swagger during the walk-up. The range looked like something he understood. Rifles. Targets. Scores. A clean place to prove a dirty point. Ava set her ammo can down beside the line. Her palms were raw from the handle. The skin at the base of her fingers had torn open in 2 places, thin red lines pressed into callus. She flexed once, slow, then wiped her hands on her trousers. Pain was information. Nothing more. An instructor named Petty Officer Hale moved along the line, issuing rifles and spotting scopes. He was older than most of the staff, with a weathered face and eyes that seemed permanently narrowed against distance. He spoke less than the others, but when he did, candidates listened. Hale had the stillness of someone who had spent years waiting for the right second. He handed Cole a rifle first. Basic platform. Known 0. Do not embarrass it. Cole took it with a confident nod. Understood. Hale moved to Ava. For a moment, he did not hand her the rifle. He looked at her hands. Then her eyes. Then the way she stood with her left foot half an inch behind the right, already angled to settle into the earth. Martinez, he said. Yes, Petty Officer. You familiar with long glass? A few candidates looked over. Cole's grin widened. Ava answered evenly. Some. Hale's face did not change, but Chief Rourke, standing 10 feet away, heard the word and watched more closely. Some. In military language, that word could mean almost nothing. Or it could mean everything a person was not allowed to say. Hale handed her the rifle. Ava accepted it with both hands. Not reverent. Not casual. Correct. She checked the chamber, inspected the optic mount, ran her thumb lightly along the adjustment turret, and settled the weapon against her body like she was confirming the shape of an old memory. The motion lasted 3 seconds. It changed the air around her. Miles Avery noticed first. He had seen candidates grab rifles all week like props in a photograph. Ava did not grab. She received. She cleared. She assessed. Cole noticed too, but refused to understand what he was seeing. Careful, he muttered. That one doesn't come with training wheels. Ava did not look at him. Hale did. Barrett. Cole straightened. Petty Officer. You always talk this much before shooting? A couple of candidates dropped their eyes. Cole's face tightened. No, Petty Officer. Start now. The first drill was simple on paper. Locate 3 known distance targets between 400 and 700 meters. Identify. Range. Fire. Adjust. Simple on paper meant nothing on that range. The first candidate missed high. The second hit dirt 3 feet left. The third could not find the second plate until Hale pointed out that he had been staring at a rock for 90 seconds. Wind moved wrong through the valley. Not strong. Worse than strong. Inconsistent. It curled around the left ridge, dropped into the hollow, and lifted again near the target line. Grass leaned one way near the shooter and another way near the plate. Mirage shimmered low against the rock, bending distance just enough to punish anyone who trusted the obvious. Cole shot 5th. He settled in fast, elbows wide, cheek pressed hard to the stock. His first round struck just below the plate. Not terrible. His second corrected too much and missed right. His third hit with a flat metallic ping. He rose with a grin. Hit, he said, louder than necessary. Hale marked the board. 1 out of 3. Cole's grin thinned. Correction was good. Score was 1 out of 3. No one laughed. But some wanted to. Then it was Ava's turn. She stepped to the mat and lowered herself behind the rifle. The whole line shifted without meaning to. There was no dramatic movement. No speech. No sharp display of confidence. She simply folded into position, and everything unnecessary seemed to leave her body. Her spine aligned. Her shoulders softened. Her breathing slowed until it was barely visible beneath the wet fabric of her shirt. Hale watched from behind the spotting scope. Rourke watched Hale. Ava did not touch the trigger. Not yet. She looked through the optic, then lifted her head slightly and studied the valley with her bare eyes. Grass. Dust. Low brush. The torn edge of a paper marker near the target berm. A gull cutting inland above the left ridge and shifting its wings against a crosscurrent. Cole whispered, "What is she waiting for?" Miles answered before he could stop himself. "The wind." Ava returned to the glass. Her hand moved to the turret. One click. Pause. Two more. She settled again. The first shot cracked across the hills. A second later, the steel plate answered. Ping. Clean. No correction call. No splash in the dirt. Just steel. Hale's mouth barely moved. Impact. Ava cycled the bolt. Second target. She found it faster than anyone else had. Not because she guessed where it was. Because she had already mapped the terrain while others were busy waiting their turn. Her breathing slowed again. Shot. Ping. This time the sound came from farther out, thinner with distance. Several candidates exchanged looks. Cole's face hardened. Ava shifted to the third target. 700 meters. Half hidden in shadow beneath a broken rock shelf. The kind of target that punished impatience. She did not rush. The range seemed to hold its breath with her. Even the instructors stopped moving. Ava waited through one wind change. Then another. Her finger took the slack out of the trigger. The rifle fired. For one long moment, there was only the echo rolling against the hills. Then the far plate rang. Ping. 3 for 3. Hale looked over the spotting scope. Chief Rourke said nothing. Cole stared at the valley like the target had betrayed him. Ava opened the bolt, cleared the chamber, and stood. No smile. No victory glance. She set the rifle down and stepped back into line. The candidates around her were quiet now, but not the same quiet as before. This one had weight. It had questions inside it. Hale walked to the scoreboard and wrote beside her name. 3 impacts. No corrections. Then he turned to the platoon. That, he said, is what listening looks like. Ava kept her eyes forward. Cole looked at her hands again. The torn skin. The calm fingers. The rifle still warm on the mat. For the first time since morning, he did not have a joke ready. And far beyond the 700-meter plate, hidden deeper in the hills, the advanced targets waited. The first 3 hits changed the range. Not the weather. Not the targets. Not the cold moving through the candidates' wet uniforms. The people. Before Ava fired, they had watched her like a question. After she stepped back from the mat, they watched her like an answer they did not understand. Cole Barrett stood with his arms crossed, jaw tight, eyes fixed on the scoreboard as if the numbers might rearrange themselves if he stared long enough. 3 impacts. No corrections. It looked too clean. That was what bothered him. Luck usually had noise around it. A surprised laugh. A shaky smile. A quick glance to see who noticed. Ava had given them none of that. She had fired 3 rounds, cleared the rifle, and returned to the line as if she had done nothing more impressive than close a door. Petty Officer Hale let the silence work. A good instructor knew when not to speak. Words could explain a lesson, but silence made candidates sit inside it. Finally, Hale walked back to the firing line and pointed toward the hills. Those were known distance plates, he said. Large enough to teach fundamentals. Close enough to punish arrogance without ruining your day. A few candidates shifted. Cole looked up. Hale's eyes moved across the platoon. Now we find out who is paying attention. Behind him, 2 assistant instructors moved downrange along a protected trench line. Steel plates rose from hidden positions farther into the broken terrain, smaller and darker than the first set. Some were half covered by brush. Others sat near rock faces where shadow blurred their edges. One stood so far out that several candidates leaned forward just trying to locate it. Chief Rourke stepped beside Hale. Unknown distance, Rourke said. No range cards. No electronic aids. Shooter and spotter only. You will estimate, communicate, adjust, and fire. 2-round limit per target. The mood shifted again. Known distance shooting allowed confidence. Unknown distance exposed truth. Cole rolled his shoulders. Finally, Miles Avery glanced at him. You sure? Cole gave him a look. I hit steel. 1 out of 3, Miles said quietly. Cole turned on him. You got something to say? Miles looked away. Ava heard the exchange but did not move. Her attention had gone to the wind. It was changing. The morning rain had left moisture in the low ground, and now a faint warmth pushed up from the valley floor. Mirage began to crawl above the rocks in thin, wavering lines. The left ridge still carried a crosswind from the ocean, but the lower lanes had started to boil upward. That meant a bullet could drift one way, drop through a pocket, then lift just enough to fool a shooter who trusted only the first sign. Ava looked at the grass, then the brush, then the dust hanging near a far berm. Hale saw her eyes working. He said nothing. Cole volunteered before his name was called. "I'll go." Rourke glanced at the board. "You'll go when assigned." Cole swallowed his answer. The first pair stepped up. Shooter and spotter. They found the first target after nearly a minute. Estimated 500. Fired. Missed low. Corrected. Hit on second round. The line relaxed slightly. The second target was not so forgiving. 3 teams missed both rounds. 1 team never found it. Hale did not insult them. He did not need to. The empty air after each miss did enough. Then Cole's name was called. He chose a confident spotter, a candidate named Harris, who had spent the morning laughing at every one of his jokes. They dropped behind the rifle and scope with the energy of men who wanted the range to restore their place in the room. "Target 1, Hale said. Cole found it fast. 2. Fast. 550, Harris said. Cole adjusted. Fired. Dirt jumped short and left. "At elevation," Harris said. "Right half." Cole exhaled hard, corrected, and fired again. Ping. The plate rang. Cole stood with a sharp nod, relief disguised as swagger. Hale marked the board. Second round impact. Cole did not look at Ava. That would have made it too obvious. "Target 2, Hale said. This one sat farther out, tucked near a gray rock shelf that created false edges in the optic. Harris struggled to locate it. Cole muttered for him to hurry. 700, Harris said finally. Ava's eyes flicked once toward the ridge. Not 700. Farther. The mirage was compressing the shelf, making the plate seem closer than it was. She could see it from the way the brush line stepped down behind the target. Cole fired. The round disappeared into the dirt well short. Harris panicked. Up. Up a lot. Cole twisted the turret too quickly. Second shot. Hi. Right. Nothing. No steel. No echo. Just wind. Hale marked the board. No impact. Cole's neck reddened. Bad call, he muttered. Harris looked stung but said nothing. Target 3, Hale said. This target was the farthest yet, barely visible in shadow beyond a shallow saddle between 2 hills. The wind crossed from left to right at the firing line, then died near the midpoint, then picked up again near the target in the opposite direction. It was a cruel little puzzle. Cole took longer this time. Too long for his pride. Candidates watched him search. The same men who had laughed with him now kept their faces neutral. Nobody wanted to be attached to failure while it was still forming. 800, Harris whispered. Cole fired. Mississippi. No visible splash. Harris adjusted blindly. Cole fired again. Mississippi. Hale did not move for a second. Then he marked the board. No impact. Cole stood quickly, anger masking embarrassment. Wind shifted. Hale looked at him. It does that. A few candidates looked down. Cole stepped back into line, breathing hard through his nose. Then Rourke checked the clipboard. Martinez. Ava stepped forward. Cole stared straight ahead, refusing to watch. But he watched anyway. Hale assigned Miles. Avery as her spotter. Miles blinked, surprised, then grabbed the scope and settled beside her. Ava lay behind the rifle, slow and careful, building the position from the ground up. Feet flat. Hips settled. Shoulders soft. Cheek weld consistent. She did not force the weapon into place. She let the earth take the weight. Miles leaned into the spotting scope. Target 1, Hale said. Ava found it. Range. Miles whispered. 580, Ava said. Miles checked. You sure? 580. Wind left quarter. Hold point 2. Her voice had changed. Not louder. Clearer. Like the world had narrowed to distance, air, and steel. She fired. Ping. First round. Miles looked over the scope, startled. Ava cycled the bolt. Target 2, Hale said. Miles searched, then froze. I think I have it. Near the rock shelf. Not the first shelf, Ava said. Second shadow. Brushed line behind it drops right. Miles adjusted his scope. I see it. 8:20. Miles turned his head. Cole called 7. Ava's eye stayed in the glass. Cole was wrong. No one missed that. Cole's face hardened. Ava breathed out halfway. Held. Fired. The valley gave them nothing for one long second. Then the steel rang. Thin. Far. Certain. Miles whispered, impact. Hale marked the board, but his eyes stayed on Ava. Target 3. The last plate waited in the broken saddle, the one that had swallowed Cole's 2 rounds without mercy. Ava did not touch the turret immediately. She lifted her head and watched the hills. 1 second. 5. 10. Cole muttered, she doesn't know. Ava lowered back into the rifle. 960, she said. Miles stared into the scope. Wind. Both directions. He looked confused. Ava's finger settled near the trigger. Wait for the lull. The range went still. Not truly still. Just still enough. Ava fired. The shot cracked, rolled, and vanished into the hills. Nobody breathed. Then, from almost 1,000 meters away, came the sound. Ping. Small. Clean. Historic. Miles lifted his head from the scope, eyes wide. Hale lowered his binoculars. Chief Rourke looked at the scoreboard, then at Ava, then at the far target still trembling in its shadow. 3 targets. 3 first round. Impacts. Unknown distance. The line of candidates stood silent behind her. Ava opened the bolt and cleared the rifle. Cole Barrett's mouth had gone dry. For the first time all day, the range had decided. And it had not chosen him. The sound of the last impact stayed in the air longer than it should have. Not the echo. The meaning. A clean hit at that distance did not just ring steel. It reached backward through every laugh from that morning, every smirk in the mess hall, every careless sentence thrown at Ava Martinez because she was smaller, quieter, easier to doubt. Now the candidates had nothing to throw. No one moved. Even the wind seemed to pause over the hills, dragging thin mist through the saddle where the far target still trembled. Petty Officer Hale walked to the spotting scope and checked the plate again, though he did not need to. He had seen the strike. Everyone had. Still, procedure mattered most when emotion wanted to take over. Confirmed, he said. The word landed like a stamp on official paper. Chief Rourke looked down at his clipboard. Then he looked at Ava. She was still kneeling beside the rifle, bolt open, chamber clear, one hand resting lightly near the stock. Her expression had not changed. She did not smile. She did not search the line for Cole's reaction. She did not take the moment and turn it into a performance. That, more than the shot, told Rourke something. Skill could be trained. Discipline could be built. But restraint under vindication was rare. Most people, after being mocked all morning, would want the room to know they had won. Ava acted like winning had never been the point. Hale stepped closer. Martinez. Ava rose. Petty Officer. Where did you learn to read wind like that? The question was simple. The range went silent in a different way. Candidates who had been staring at the far hill now stared at her. Cole looked up from the dirt. Miles Avery, still beside the scope, turned slowly. Even the assistant instructors stopped writing. Ava's fingers flexed once at her side. It was the smallest movement. Rourke saw it. So did Hale. Ava answered after a beat. Long days, Petty Officer. Hale's eyes narrowed slightly. That's not an answer. No, Petty Officer. A few candidates exchanged glances. Cole let out a short breath, not quite a laugh. Convenient. Ava did not look at him. Hale did. Cole straightened, but the damage was already done. His voice had carried enough to show the bitterness behind it. Rourke stepped forward. Something on your mind, Barrett? Cole's mouth opened. Closed. Then opened again. Chief, I'm just saying 3 first-round hits on unknown distance targets? After claiming she just wants sniper school? That's not normal. No, Hale said. The single word stopped him. Hale looked back at Ava. It isn't. The candidates shifted again, uncertain now. Cole heard agreement and mistook it for support. Exactly, he said. So either she's had training nobody told us about, or, Rourke cut in, you're about to accuse another candidate of something you can't prove. Cole froze. Ava stood still. Her eyes stayed on the hills. Rourke's voice dropped, colder now. Choose your next words carefully. Cole swallowed. His pride wanted to keep fighting. His instincts finally told him the ground ahead was dangerous. I'm just asking how, he said. That was safer. Barely. Hale turned toward the platoon. Good. Then all of you can learn something. He pointed toward the far target. Most shooters saw a plate. Martinez saw terrain. Most shooters saw one wind call. Martinez saw 3. Near wind. Mid-lane dead zone. Target side reversal. She waited for the lull because forcing the shot would have turned a good hold into a miss. He looked at Cole. That is not luck. Cole's jaw tightened. Hale continued. It is not magic. It is not attitude. It is work most people never see because they're too busy talking over it. Ava looked down for the first time. Not embarrassed. Guarded. For a moment, she was not on the range. She was somewhere else. A dry hillside before sunrise. A notebook balanced on one knee. A man's rough voice telling her that wind never lied, but it never explained itself either. Old brass lined in rows. Dust lifting off stone. The smell of gun oil and coffee in a place where nobody clapped after a hit because the hit was only the beginning of responsibility. Then the memory passed. Rourke studied her carefully. There it was again. The missing section in her file. The restricted marksmanship attachment he had not been cleared to open until later that evening. The note from command that said only candidate Martinez is to be evaluated under standard conditions. No preferential treatment. Do not disclose prior assessment history without authorization. At the time, he had assumed politics. Now he was not so sure. Hale walked to the rifle and picked up the data book beside it. It was standard issue, blank when handed out that morning. Ava's was not blank anymore. He opened it. The pages were filled with small, precise notes. Wind sketches. Terrain markers. Estimated distance bands. Corrections from other shooters. Mirage observations. Impact calls. Missed calls. Timestamps. Not emotional. Not decorative. Pure information compressed into clean handwriting. Hale turned one page. Then another. His expression changed almost imperceptibly. Rourke noticed. What is it? Rourke asked. Hale held up the book. She built a range card while carrying ammo cans. Miles looked at Ava like he had never seen her before. Cole's face darkened. Ava said quietly, there was time between rotations. Hale stared at her. There was pain between rotations, he said. Ava gave no answer. That was answer enough. Rourke took the data book, scanned the notes, and felt the final pieces of the morning rearrange themselves. Ava had not arrived at the precision range hoping to be lucky. She had been preparing since the gate opened. Maybe before that. Maybe from the moment she first saw the flags moving over the compound at dawn. The mockery had been noise. She had used the noise as cover. Chief Rourke closed the book and handed it back. Platoon, he said. Every candidate straightened. What you just saw is the difference between wanting a title and doing the work before anyone gives you one. No one looked at Cole. That made it worse. Rourke turned toward the assistant instructors. Set the advanced lane. Hale's eyes shifted to him. There was a pause. The advanced lane was not for familiarization. It was not for Day 6 candidates. It was the kind of lane used to humble experienced shooters who had started to believe their own reputations. Cole heard the words and looked toward the hills. Ava did too. Far beyond the last target, deeper in the broken ground, a thin black plate began to rise. Almost invisible. 1,000 meters was no longer the end of the range. It was the beginning. Hale lowered his voice. Chief, that lane is not standard for this group. Rourke kept his eyes on Ava. Neither was that shot. Ava's face remained calm, but Miles, standing close enough now, saw her breathing change. Not fear. Recognition again. Like the range had finally stopped pretending. Cole stepped forward before he could stop himself. So she gets another chance to show off? Rourke turned slowly. No, he said. She gets the same thing everyone here gets. He looked down the line of candidates. A target. A rifle. And the truth. Then he faced Ava. Martinez. Yes, Chief. 1 round. The words moved through the platoon like electricity. 1 round meant no correction. No second chance. No excuse. Hale studied the distant plate through his binoculars, then called the condition. Advanced target. Unknown distance. Crosswind variable. Mirage active. Shooter will estimate and engage on command. Ava stepped toward the mat. Cole watched her with a strange mix of resentment and fear, because part of him finally understood that if she hit this one, the story would no longer be about whether she belonged. It would be about how badly they had misjudged her. Ava lowered herself behind the rifle. The world narrowed again. Stone. Grass. Wind. Breath. Steel. Behind her, 51 candidates stood silent. In front of her, history waited in the hills. Ava Martinez did not touch the rifle for 3 full seconds. She looked past it. Past the firing mat. Past the instructors, the candidates, the scoreboard, and the line of faces waiting for her to become either proof or failure. The advanced plate sat somewhere beyond the visible comfort of the range. It was not painted bright white like the earlier targets. It was dark, narrow, and placed against a broken shelf of stone where shadow and metal became almost the same thing. From the firing line, it looked less like a target than a mistake in the landscape. That was the point. Petty Officer Hale watched through binoculars. Chief Rourke stood behind Ava with his arms relaxed at his sides, but his eyes missed nothing. 1 round, Rourke said again. Ava nodded once. No drama. No hesitation. She lowered herself behind the rifle. The gravel beneath the mat pressed through the fabric into her elbows. The stock settled into her shoulder. Her cheek found the same place it had found before. Her right hand wrapped the grip without tension. Her left hand rested lightly, guiding without forcing. Cole Barrett stood at the back of the line now, but his stare was impossible to miss. He wanted her to miss. Not because the shot mattered. Because if she missed, the world could go back to making sense. Ava saw none of it. Inside the optic, the hills opened into layers. Near ridge. Low scrub. Wind grass. Rock shelf. False shadow. Target side brush. She let her eye move slowly. Not hunting. Reading. A bad shooter chased the target. A good shooter built the world around it first. The plate flickered once inside the glass as a thin sheet of mirage shifted across the valley. Ava did not adjust yet. Mirage lied when stared at directly. It told the truth when watched at the edges. Her breathing slowed. Behind her, 51 candidates stood without speaking. Miles Avery could hear his own heartbeat. He had not known a range could feel like a courtroom until that moment. Every laugh from the morning had become evidence. Every insult had returned to stand trial. Hale called softly, "Wind is active." Ava did not answer. He knew she had heard. The near wind pushed from the left at about 6 miles per hour. Midway down the valley, it collapsed where the land dipped, then rose again from the right near the target shelf. The earlier shots had confirmed the pattern, but the advanced plate was farther, smaller, less forgiving. The bullet would spend too long in the air for a simple hold. Cole whispered, barely audible, "No way." No one laughed with him. Ava's finger rested along the frame, away from the trigger. She watched a strand of grass near the left berm lean, lift, and settle. She watched dust peel off a dry patch of earth halfway downrange. She watched a gull cross above the far saddle and dip one wing against a current no flag could show. Then, for a fraction of a second, everything aligned. Not stopped. Aligned. Ava moved her finger to the trigger. Chief Rourke saw the decision before the shot. The rifle cracked. The sound slammed into the hills and rolled outward. No one breathed. The bullet traveled in silence, too far for the mind to follow, crossing air that changed its mind twice before it reached the shadowed rock. A second passed. Then another. Cole's mouth opened. And the steel rang. Ping. Thin. Distant. Undeniable. For one heartbeat, the range did not react. It simply absorbed the impossible. Then Petty Officer Hale lowered his binoculars. Impact, he said. The word was quiet. It still hit harder than a shout. Miles Avery turned toward Ava, eyes wide. Ruiz exhaled like he had been underwater. Several candidates stared downrange, not believing the plate had actually moved until it trembled again in the scope. Cole did not move at all. His face had gone still in a way that looked almost empty. Ava opened the bolt, caught the spent casing in her palm, and placed it beside the rifle. Then she cleared the chamber and rose to one knee. Chief Rourke looked at Hale. Hale looked back. There was something in the older instructor's face now that had not been there before. Recognition. Not surprise. Recognition. Rourke saw it and stepped closer. Petty officer? Hale kept his eyes on Ava. How far did you call it? Ava stood fully. 1,180 meters. Hale glanced toward the range board. The assistant instructor holding the laser rangefinder swallowed before speaking. Confirmed distance, he said. 1,183. The candidates reacted in a low wave. Not loud. They were too stunned for loud. Hale looked at Ava's data book again, then at her hands, then at the casing lying beside the rifle. What was your hold? Ava answered with numbers. Clean. Exact. No pride in them. Just truth. Hale's jaw tightened once, and for the first time that day, he removed his cap. Rainwater had darkened the brim. He held it at his side and looked at her like a man standing in front of a memory he had buried. Who taught you to wait through a false lull? He asked. Ava's face changed. Only slightly. But enough. Rourke noticed the wall come up behind her eyes. The range waited. Ava's voice was quieter when she answered. A man who said wind punishes ego first. Hale froze. The sentence moved through him like a code phrase. For a moment, he was not on the training range. He was 30 years younger, lying behind a rifle on a sunburned hillside, listening to a legendary marksman say those exact words while dust crawled over their sleeves. Hale took one step toward her. What was his name? Ava did not answer immediately. Her gaze lowered to the spent casing. Then she said, Master Chief Elias Ward. Hale's face lost color. Chief Rourke turned toward him. You know that name? Hale gave a short nod, but his eyes stayed on Ava. Everyone who ever took precision shooting seriously knew that name. The candidates looked between them confused. Cole looked as if the ground had shifted beneath his boots. Hale's voice dropped. Ward trained 6 of the best military snipers this country ever produced. Then he disappeared from instruction circles completely. Ava stood still. He didn't disappear, she said. Hale looked at her. He went home. The words were simple. They carried weight anyway. Ava saw him then as he had been in the last years. Older. Slower. Still sharper than anyone she had ever known. Sitting at a wooden table before sunrise, drawing wind lines on napkins, making her explain distance before he let her touch a rifle. Making her miss on purpose until she understood why. Making her clean the weapon even when her fingers were numb. Making her write down every shot, not just the good ones. He had never called it talent. He hated that word. Talent made people lazy. Work made them dangerous. Hale stepped back and looked toward the far plate again. That man didn't train hobby shooters, he said. Ava's jaw set. No, petty officer. Rourke studied her. Why wasn't this in your file? Ava met his eyes. Parts of it are. Blacked out. Yes, Chief. Why? She took one breath. The whole platoon seemed to lean toward the answer. Because Master Chief Ward's final assessment was sealed after the Kodiak evaluation. Hale's head turned sharply. Rourke's voice lowered. You were at Kodiak? Ava did not flinch. Yes, Chief. The name meant nothing to most candidates. But it meant something to the instructors. Hale looked at Rourke. Rourke looked back, and the silence between them said enough. Kodiak was not a school. Not officially. It was a brutal, invitation-only precision evaluation used to identify rare shooters for classified reconnaissance programs. Most experienced marksmen never saw it. Most who saw it did not finish. Ava Martinez had not only been there. She had survived it. Cole's voice came out rough. What does that mean? No one answered him. Not at first. Then Hale turned to the platoon. It means, he said, that while some of you were laughing about sniper school, Candidate Martinez had already passed an evaluation most shooters will never be invited to attempt. The words struck harder than the shot. Ava looked down. She had not wanted it said like that. But the truth had left cover now. Rourke stepped beside her and faced the candidates. "Let history record this correctly," he said. Today was not the day Ava Martinez became a shooter. He looked toward the far plate, still swaying faintly in the distance. Today was the day the rest of you found out. No one spoke. Cole Barrett stared at Ava, and for the first time since morning, there was no insult in his eyes. Only the dull shock of a man realizing he had mistaken silence for weakness. Ava picked up the spent casing and closed her fingers around it. She did not smile. She did not celebrate. She simply looked back toward the hills. Because history, she knew, was never made by applause. It was made in the quiet second before the shot, when nobody believed in you yet, and you fired anyway. The range did not return to normal after Ava Martinez's shot. It tried. The instructors moved. The assistant range officer checked the target. Candidates shifted their weight and pretended to study the hills. Someone cleared his throat. Someone else adjusted the strap on his rucksack for no reason at all. But the air had changed. Every person on that firing line knew it. A few minutes earlier, Ava had been a question they felt comfortable laughing at. Now she was a fact they had to stand beside. Chief Rourke ordered the platoon off the line and into a covered staging area near the range shed. The roof was corrugated metal, patched in places with dull green panels. Rainwater ticked from the edges into the gravel. Rifles were cleared, checked, and placed back in the racks. Data books were collected for review. Ava handed hers to Petty Officer Hale without a word. Hale took it with both hands. That small detail did not escape anyone. Before, instructors had passed equipment around her like she was one more candidate in a long line of bodies trying to survive the week. Now Hale handled her notebook like it contained evidence. Cole Barrett stood 20 feet away, arms hanging at his sides. For once, he had no audience. The men who had laughed with him that morning were not standing close anymore. Not because they suddenly hated him. Because failure had a smell in places like this, and nobody wanted it on their uniform. Miles Avery leaned against a wooden post near Ava but said nothing. He wanted to speak. He wanted to apologize for every moment he had stayed quiet when Cole pushed too far. But the words felt small now. Ava looked out at the range. The advance plate had been lowered. The hillside looked empty again, as if nothing historic had happened there. That was how ranges worked. They kept no monuments. They gave you the truth, then reset for the next shooter. Chief Rourke stepped into the center of the shelter. "Bring it in." The platoon formed a half circle. No one moved slowly. Rourke held Ava's data book in one hand. Hale stood beside him, face unreadable, but his eyes had not lost the weight of what he had heard. Master Chief Elias Ward. Kodiak. Sealed assessment. Those names had turned the day into something larger than training. Rourke opened the notebook and held it up. "This," he said, "is what most of you missed." The candidates stared. Cole looked at the floor. Rourke flipped one page. "While you were joking, she was recording wind. While you were watching each other, she was watching terrain. While some of you were trying to decide whether she belonged here, she was doing the work that belonging requires." He closed the book. The sound was soft. It still made Cole flinch. Rourke's gaze moved across the platoon. "Let me make something clear. This program does not care about your size, your background, your hometown, your attitude, or the story you tell yourself in the mirror. It cares about standards." He pointed toward the hills. "Out there, the bullet does not care who mocked whom. The wind does not care who looks the part. Steel does not ring because you're loud. It rings because you did the math, controlled your breathing, and earned the hit." Ava stood still at the edge of the group. She did not look proud. She looked tired. That bothered Miles more than anything. Not physically tired. Everyone was physically tired. Ava looked like someone watching an old pattern repeat and deciding, again, not to let bitterness touch her. Rourke turned his eyes to Cole. "Barrett." Cole snapped upright. "Chief." "Step forward." The shelter tightened. Cole walked into the open space. His boots sounded too loud on the gravel. Rourke did not raise his voice. This morning, you questioned candidate Martinez's place in this training. Cole swallowed. Yes, Chief. You mocked her goal. Yes, Chief. You implied she did not belong in a pipeline she earned the right to enter. Cole's face burned red. Yes, Chief. Rourke stepped closer. And when the range gave you an answer, you looked for any explanation except the obvious one. Cole's eyes flicked toward Ava, then away. Yes, Chief. What was the obvious one? For a second, Cole seemed unable to make his mouth work. The whole platoon waited. Ava's face remained calm, but her fingers curled once against her palm. Rourke repeated the question. What was the obvious one? Cole looked at the firing line. Then the hill. Then finally at Ava. That she's better than I thought, he said. Rourke did not move. Cole corrected himself, voice lower. That she's better than me. No one breathed. Ava did not react. Rourke studied him. That is part of it. Try again. Cole's jaw tightened, but not with anger this time. Shame had a different shape. He turned fully toward Ava. I judged you before I knew anything, he said. The words came out rough. Not polished. Not enough. But real. I was wrong. Ava held his gaze. Cole looked like he expected her to punish him with silence. She did not. After a long moment, she said, then be wrong once. Not twice. The sentence landed harder than an insult because it gave him a path forward without letting him escape what he had done. Cole nodded once. Yes, Martinez. Not sweetheart. Not future sniper. Not quota. Her name. For the first time all day, he used it correctly. Rourke stepped back. You will carry targets after training. All of them. You will clean weapons with the armory team. And tomorrow morning, you will run the beach loop with the slowest candidate in this platoon, not ahead of them, not behind them. Beside them. Cole nodded. Yes, Chief. Because strength that only performs when people are watching is not strength. It's decoration. A few candidates lowered their eyes. That message was not only for Cole. Rourke turned to the rest of them. And for everyone who laughed, everyone who stayed quiet because it was easier, everyone who decided this wasn't your problem, understand this now. Team failure rarely starts with weakness. It starts with permission. The rain ticked from the roof. Permission to disrespect. Permission to isolate. Permission to decide someone has to prove their humanity before you offer them basic dignity. His voice remained steady, but the words cut clean. That ends here. Ava looked down at her boots. She had heard speeches before. Some better. Some louder. Most forgotten by dinner. This one felt different because it had not been built from theory. It had been built from the sound of steel answering across 1,000 meters. Hale stepped forward then. He handed Ava back her data book. Martinez. Yes, petty officer. He paused, then spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. Master Chief Ward was the best wind reader I ever saw. Ava's eyes lifted. Hale's expression softened by the smallest degree. If he signed off on you, he didn't do it because he cared about making history. No, petty officer, Ava said quietly. He did it because you were ready. The words struck something in her that the insults had not reached. For a moment, her composure almost moved. Almost. She accepted the book. Thank you, petty officer. Hale nodded. Don't thank me. Prove him right. Ava looked toward the hills again. I intend to. Chief Rourke dismissed the platoon for equipment recovery. The candidates broke apart, but the way they moved around Ava had changed. Nobody crowded her. Nobody joked. Nobody tested the air with another cheap comment. Ruiz passed first. Good shooting, he said. Ava nodded. Good carry on the litter. He looked surprised that she had noticed. Miles came next. He stood there for a second, searching for words. I should have said something earlier, he admitted. Ava looked at him. Yes. The honesty hit him in the chest. Then she added, say it next time. Miles nodded. I will. Cole was last. He stopped a few feet away, holding an empty target frame under one arm. His face still carried the damage of the day, but his voice was quieter now. Martinez. Ava turned. Cole looked at the ground, then forced himself to meet her eyes. That shot, he stopped. There was no easy way to finish the sentence. Ava waited. Cole exhaled. I've never seen anything like it. She studied him for a moment, then said, You weren't looking. Cole absorbed that. Not cruel. True. He nodded slowly. I'll start. Ava picked up her rucksack. Behind them, the candidates moved toward the range, gathering steel, frames, and gear under Hale's supervision. The day was not over. Training never cared how emotional a lesson had been. There was always equipment to clean, sand to carry, standards to meet. Ava slipped the data book into her pocket and stepped back into the cold. The hills stood quiet behind her. No applause. No ceremony. Only the echo of one shot still living in the minds of people who had laughed before they understood. And for Ava Martinez, that was enough. History had been made. Not because they finally saw her, but because she had never needed them to. By dusk, the training compound had changed. Color. The gray of morning had burned away into a hard blue cold, then softened into gold along the edge of the ocean. Long shadows stretched across the sand. Wet ropes hung from steel racks. Rubber boats lay upside down near the surf, dark with seawater and use. Somewhere beyond the dunes, gulls cried into the wind like they had been there long before the base and would remain long after it. The candidates moved slower now. Not lazy. Spent. There was a difference. They carried target frames back from the precision range, cleaned mud from equipment, logged rifles into the armory, and swept sand from places sand would return to by morning. No one complained loud enough for the instructors to hear. Maybe they were too tired. Maybe the day had taken something from them that noise could not replace. Ava Martinez stood at the weapons table beneath the armory lights. The rifle from the advanced lane lay in front of her, cleared and broken down for cleaning. Her sleeves were rolled to her forearms. Dried salt marked the fabric of her uniform. The torn skin on her palms had darkened around the edges, but her hands still moved with quiet care. Patch. Rod. Cloth. Oil. Inspect. Repeat. She cleaned the weapon the same way she had fired it. Without waste. Petty Officer Hale watched from the doorway for almost a full minute before speaking. Ward used to clean from muzzle to stock. Ava did not look up. Only when he wanted people to argue with him. Hale's mouth moved like it might become a smile, but didn't quite get there. He said men revealed themselves fastest when they thought the small things didn't matter. Ava ran a cloth along the bolt. He said a lot of things. That one stayed with me. She paused for half a second, then continued working. It stayed with me too. Outside, voices moved across the yard. Cole Barrett and two other candidates were stacking target frames near the shed. Cole carried more than anyone had assigned him. Not to impress. Not this time. He just kept going back for another frame. Miles Avery ran beside the slowest candidate in the platoon during the evening recovery loop, keeping pace instead of pulling ahead. Twice, he looked like he wanted to speed up. Twice, he didn't. Small things. Ava noticed. She always noticed. Chief Rourke entered the armory with her data book tucked under one arm. Martinez. Ava straightened. Chief. At ease. She relaxed by exactly 1 degree. Rourke set the notebook on the table, but kept his hand resting on top of it. Reviewed your entries. Ava said nothing. Clean work. Thank you, Chief. Not praise. Assessment. Yes, Chief. Hale leaned against the wall, arms folded, letting the two of them speak. Rourke studied Ava's face. I made a call after the range. Her hands stilled. Command confirmed your Kodiak evaluation. The armory seemed quieter suddenly. Ava's eyes stayed on the rifle. Understood. Your final score was not just a pass. She did not answer. Rourke continued. It was the highest recorded precision field score in that evaluation's history. Hale looked at her. Even he had not known that part. Ava picked up the cleaning cloth again, but Rourke's next words stopped her. You made history before today. Outside, a target frame hit the gravel with a hollow wooden knock. Ava looked down at her hands. For a moment, the careful walls around her expression loosened. Not enough to break. Just enough to show the weight behind them. My instructor told me history was only useful if it made you more responsible, she said. Rourke nodded slowly. Sounds like Ward. He hated trophies. Hated excuses more. Ava looked up then. Yes, Chief. Rourke slid the data book across the table. Tomorrow morning, your platoon begins open water conditioning. After that, land navigation. After that, another dozen chances to fail. Today does not graduate you. Today does not protect you. Today does not make the course easier. Ava took the notebook. I didn't expect it to. No, Rourke said. I don't think you did. He turned toward the door, then paused. But it changes one thing. Ava waited. Rourke looked back at her. From now on, when people doubt you, they'll have to work harder. Hale gave a low breath, almost amused. Ava's face stayed calm, but something in her eyes shifted. Not pride. Permission. Not to relax. To keep going. Rourke stepped outside, leaving Hale behind. For a while, only the small sounds of maintenance filled the armory. Metal against cloth. Oil cap turning. Rainwater dripping from the roof edge. Hale walked closer and rested one hand on the table. I was there the day Ward left instruction, he said. Ava continued cleaning, slower now. He told us the next great shooter wouldn't be the loudest one in the room, Hale said. Said we'd probably miss them the first time because we'd be looking for ourselves. Ava's throat moved once. Hale looked toward the open door, where the last light was fading across the yard. I think he was right. Ava set the bolt down carefully. He never told me that. He wouldn't have. No, she said softly. He wouldn't. For the first time all day, her voice carried something other than control. Not sadness exactly. Memory. Hale straightened. Get some rest, Martinez. Yes, petty officer. He started to leave, then stopped. And for what it's worth, Ava looked up. Hale gave her the smallest nod. He would have liked that shot. Ava did not answer. She couldn't. Hale left her alone with the rifle and the fading light. Outside, the platoon formed for evening dismissal. Chief Rourke stood before them as the wind moved across the compound. Their faces were tired, marked with salt, sand, and the kind of humility only a hard day could teach. Cole stood in the front row. Not because he had earned a better place. Because he no longer wanted to hide in the back. Rourke looked over the candidates. This morning, he said, some of you thought respect was something you could withhold until someone matched the picture in your head. No one moved. You were wrong. The words did not need volume. Respect is not a reward you give when someone impresses you. Basic dignity comes first. Respect for skill is earned after that. And today, candidate Martinez earned it in a language this place understands. He looked toward the range hills. Discipline. Patience. Precision. Results. Ava stood near the armory door, half in shadow, listening. Rourke's gaze returned to the platoon. Remember this. The loudest person in the room is not always the strongest. The biggest body is not always carrying the hardest story. And the quietest candidate on your left may be the one who saves your life when the wind changes. Cole's eyes lowered. Not in shame this time. In understanding. Rourke dismissed them. The formation broke slowly. No laughter followed Ava when she crossed the yard. No whispers. No cheap comments wrapped in jokes. Candidates stepped aside, not dramatically, not fearfully, but with a new awareness. Miles gave her a nod. Ruiz did the same. Cole stood still as she approached, then squared his shoulders. Martinez, he said. She stopped. Cole held out the spent casing from the advanced lane. Hale must have given it to him while they were clearing gear. Or maybe Rourke had. It did not matter. I found this near the mat, Cole said. Figured you should have it. Ava looked at the casing in his palm. Small. Brass. Ordinary. The kind of object history sometimes hid inside. She took it. Thank you. Cole nodded. I meant what I said earlier. I'll start looking. Ava studied him. Then she said, start listening too. Cole accepted that without defense. Yes. She walked past him toward the barracks. The ocean wind moved against her face. Her body hurt in a dozen places. Tomorrow would hurt more. The course would not become kinder because she had made one impossible shot. The instructors would not lower a single standard. The water would still be cold. The sand would still be heavy. The doubt would return in other forms from other mouths on other days. But tonight, the compound remembered. It remembered the woman they laughed at. It remembered the rifle. It remembered the hills. It remembered the sound of steel answering from a distance most of them could barely see. Ava reached the barracks steps and paused. For a moment, she looked back toward the precision range. The targets had been lowered. The valley had gone quiet. Nothing out there announced what had happened. That was fine. The best shots rarely needed monuments. She opened her hand and looked at the casing. Master Chief Ward's voice came back to her, rough and low, from years before. Don't chase respect, Ava. Make the work so clean they have no choice but to recognize it. She closed her fingers around the brass. Then she stepped inside. Behind her, the last light disappeared behind the hills. And somewhere in the silence between ocean and steel, a simple truth remained. Respect is earned, not demanded. And Ava Martinez had earned it without ever asking.